I actually think that breaking up is very, very difficult, and not many people have the guts to
it's so
hold
hard.
the trigger. And to be honest, that last relationship, that breakup was, in all honesty, one of the hardest decisions I've made in my life.
Hey everyone, welcome to the UnCoupling podcast. I'm your host, Holland Roden, and today we have a very approachable guest. If you're not watching this and you're listening at home, he has incredible sunglasses on, and I love that these shades are in the house. Welcome, Joon Lee. He is an actor, a comedian, a host. He has hilarious segments on Instagram. One is called Dollar Store Advice with Dr. Joon, and the other one is Sunday Secrets, which I love this concept. Please explain what are Sunday Secrets. But before we do, how are you on small talk? Are you a fan of it, not a fan of it?
Not usually, but it is an important skill.
Important skill.
Because like, how else can you, I mean, sure,
break
you can
the
deep
ice.
dive. Right. You got to learn how to break the ice.
Well, what I love about UnCoupling, which is our podcast that talks about breakups, and I feel like it's one of the most taboo topics out there. No one wants to talk about a breakup. Everyone wants to talk about the lead into a relationship, a marriage, the highlights of what makes you guys tick, what makes you guys partners.
The butterflies.
But the butterflies, the chemistry. But when something ends, we immediately associate that with failure.
Yeah.
And we shut down. And there's this stigma that we shouldn't talk about things that didn't work out, whether that be the job, a relationship, even like a career skill. People don't like to talk about their failed careers. So I love that this is going to be a space that we are going to change the narrative about destigmatizing the word breakup. And we're gonna get some small talk and get to know Joon before we jump into your most intense breakup ever. But I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, we're gonna get into it because I hear you're from Atlanta. I worked in Atlanta for several years.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about Atlanta?
The southern hospitality, the trees, a lot of greenery.
Does it involve the word chicken? Because
there's a good
Hattie
chicken.
B's fried chicken.
Hattie B's. You know, Howlin' Rays is better.
Oh,
Howlin' Rays
is better for those in Los Angeles. Go check out. That's totally my favorite chicken place in Los Angeles. Wow.
However, Georgia brunch I prefer it over LA brunch.
Okay.
LA brunch has mastered the aesthetics of it all.
Yes.
And good drinks.
We are Insta-friendly here, guys.
Very. Oh, yeah. But Georgia, it's very like, it's kind of heavy and hearty foods.
Yeah.
And I like that. Well,
we like a little bit of a riff, a little bit of humor. And we like this idea that uncoupling is a bit of a societal joke. But at the same time, I think that that's the first step to changing the conversation about when something doesn't work out. That doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about it.
Sure.
And you are a little one for humor as well. You've got an amazing Instagram series called Sunday Secrets.
I do.
Yes. What's your favorite skit? It's Joon Lee comedy. And check it out, Sunday Secrets. What's your favorite skit? How did it come about?
Sunday Secrets is something I do on my Instagram stories.
Okay.
And so like the question box, so people submit their secrets and I react to them. So it's a double thing of the shock value of the submission and then my reaction to that submission. However, I see everyone that's submitting, but when I post it, it's anonymous. It's this week. Like people trust me. People like telling me some stuff.
I see a Sunday Secrets podcast in the works.
Yeah. Sunday Secrets a lot of times kind of tends to be kind of midnight topics.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
After hours.
Little Dr.
topics.
Drew. We nothing's off limits in this podcast.
But I do another segment on my stories called Dollar Store Advice with Dr. Joon. That's like what I call it. And so people submit their questions, a lot of times relationship, and I just give my dollar story.
Penny for your thoughts.
Yeah.
100 pennies for your thoughts.
Yes.
I like that. So what would you say is the most personal or the most significant relationship problem or breakup story that you received in either of the story categories?
I get a lot of ones about distance. There's a lot of
long
questions.
Distance?
Yeah, questions about that.
Long distance relationships.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of.
I did too.
I did
3
one as
plus
well.
year relationships. You did as well.
That's why I am no longer a fan.
Yeah.
I don't recommend.
I'm in the same boat, actually. But for many different reasons than the obvious of a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're in the same boat.
Same.
Okay. Yeah. I used to think long distance relationships are great times to work on yourself. And I now feel differently as I'm in now my mid 30s versus like late 20s, early 30s.
Right.
So we could get into that. What is the message if people want to say, Joon Lee, here's the relationship advice, and I learned it through XYZ, would you say it was one particular relationship, or would you say it's a certain kind of relationship that you kept falling into?
That latter part's a good point. I mean, there are definitely recurring themes, especially about myself, that I've learned throughout my past relationships. But the most important one is definitely my last one.
Okay.
Which ended 3-ish years ago.
So this is good. You've taken some reflection time.
Oh, yeah. I usually take a long time before I hop into another relationship.
We're already one step into the healthy bucket, guys. This is already one step in the right direction. So how long let's walk us through that relationship.
Yeah. It was 1 year total, which wasn't that long. And none of my relationships have been that long.
Okay.
Because I have found myself to also be one to not drag something out. So 1 year total, but we only saw each other in person for maybe about 2.5 months, 3 months.
No. Towards the end?
Kind of just throughout. Yeah.
So where did you meet this person?
Online. On Instagram.
Instagram is the not even low-key dating app.
Oh, no, it's the number one.
Number one.
It's the number one dating app. Instagram stories is the number one feature in all of dating.
It's interesting that in the last, 10 years maybe, that exposure to essentially the world is such an oxymoronic experience.
It's weird.
We're not meant to have that much choice. We're just not.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of choice. And it's like going to the Cheesecake Factory for dating apps. It's just like you get everything. There's always one more page to turn. And for me, I'm a Libra. I don't know. Are you a Libra as well? Okay. Libra and Howlin' Race.
We're off to a great start.
This is
It's happening.
I know. This is a moth to a flame. So you meet this person online and DM slide which person first?
I think her.
Okay.
Yeah, her. And
she slid into your DMs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She slid into mine, basically, I think. So it was a while ago. But and then we talked for many months. And then we officially met in Korea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is she Korean or is she American?
She's Korean.
She's Korean. And had she been to the States?
Never.
Wow. And what made you, I mean, obviously her personality and there was a chemistry and there, even not being in person with each other, you could feel that. But did you have a lot of girls sliding into DMs and this one stuck out to you? Or did you, what was
she
the
definitely
status?
caught my eye. She's very pretty.
Very pretty.
She was very charming. We met in Korea and then we were dating and then I went back to LA. She visited the States.
Did she like it?
She liked it. Yeah. She had a good time.
So you're dealing with not only a relationship, but a long distance relationship.
It was a pandemic relationship.
So you guys are talking on DMs for a certain amount of time.
Started dating. I mean, all in all though, the long distance, I believe, is what really kind of made it not work. I mean, it made it very difficult. I will say that. Because any early relationship is going to have its problems. It's going to have its insecurities. Things that you need to kind of iron out and deal with, which takes time, which is normal.
Did you feel like the distance, because some, COVID relationships said because there wasn't a physical aspect because of quarantine, it actually made the mental and spiritual connection a lot stronger.
Yeah, I mean, we FaceTimed a lot. We just FaceTime and talked on the phone.
She was her floating head, like walking around, a mall or a Sunday brunch.
Exactly. Okay. We were just on the phone for all the time. We had movie nights where
watch the movies together.
Yeah, and we would do it where you have to press play at the same time.
Yeah.
Cute little things like that. But physical touch is one of my biggest love languages. So that's part of the reason why I don't think long distance works. Because I think the point of long distance is to ultimately end long distance.
Yes.
I mean,
means
that's
to an
just
end.
Yeah, of course. That's just the definition of it. But that also made it really tough, just not really being able to see each other and be there physically. There's just so much that just when you're together in a person, even in a room, versus if this were happening over Zoom. It's
completely different. And we now all know that experiment so wholeheartedly of virtual versus in person because of the pandemic.
And I've always preferred in person in all aspects. How I handled it during the relationship, it was a little bit of a mixture, but honestly, 75% more towards, I am one to kind of jump ahead. I am one to get excited.
Too. Okay.
If I like you, I'm like, the second date goes well. You're like, what should our kid's name be?
You're innocent until proven guilty, right? I think you started 100 and we're going to work out.
True. Yeah.
I don't think we're not going to work out. Prove to me why we will.
Yeah.
I started you're probably my husband, and let's work backwards.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there's an aspect of giving too much benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
But I totally get it. That second date, you're all is good until it's not.
Right.
So I'm very much the innocent until proven guilty theory for dating as well.
Now I see things a bit differently.
Yeah. I do as well.
I think I have kind of matured in the way that I've been more so trying to be, how do I feel right now? Not overthink. I am an overthinker. And instead of thinking about tomorrow, and if I'm dating someone, casually or an early relationship, am I just enjoying my time with this person?
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest and only questions arguably that matters. Am I just enjoying my time with this person? Because if we can keep doing that, then we're on a good track, because you can preemptively psych yourself out and just ruin a lot of things by overthinking and worrying. Yeah.
And so did you feel like it started to hurt the relationship because you would overthink of, what are our kids on the second date, but she lives in Korea, so does that mean we're not going to work out? Would you then put resentment into the relationship because you were fearing the distance would break you up? Or were you thinking ahead so far that, okay, we'll figure out how to get together? Were you already thinking of a bi-coastal sort of plan?
Right. So in hindsight, my brother actually brought up I have an older brother, which I seek his counsel a lot. He asked me
Is he married or not married?
He's not married.
Not married,
yeah.
Okay.
He asked me a very tough question and this goes back to the whole long distance topic. When you made plans to meet up with someone, like brunch.
Yeah.
And day of, morning of, they send you a text oh, hey, I'm so sorry, something came up. And then when you read that text, a small part of you is relieved.
Totally. Yes.
And so the reason he asked me that,
okay,
and he's like, that feeling you get when someone cancels and there's a part of you that's relieved.
Yes. Okay.
He correlated that to me getting into long distance relationships. He's like, do you find yourself getting into these things, and when it doesn't work out, a part of you is relieved? Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. And then I was like, damn, maybe I do, because I see that it's not gonna work out, but then I can blame it on the distance. I'm like, it's out of my hands. But there were moments where it just got kind of rough, where we both have said some things and just some reflecting. I'm like, man, how much more of this can we both go through? And when things are, it's that's the thing about a lot of these relationships, especially kind of toxic relationships. When things are great, it's great.
Okay. So it was
highs and low lows.
The peaks and the valleys was y'all's syndrome,
exactly.
So to speak.
That's kind of what happened.
Okay.
And I do think a lot of long distance had to do with that. However, a problem that our generation and just even younger generation, especially coming in, is social media. It can be one of the greatest things, but with relationship, when there's insecurities involved on both sides, it just deepens the laundry list of things to be insecure about. And on Instagram,
too much exposure.
There's a pretty girl everywhere.
So they feel replaceable.
That, and just even every little thing follows this and that.
So
tag.
you felt like jealousy or insecurity got, especially with the added pressure of long distance.
Oh yeah, communication is huge for me in terms of relationship. It's this tightrope of wanting to make your partner feel secured and safe and comfortable. Which at the end of the day, she gave me that assurance, so that that gave me a good sense of peace. But there's also that tightrope of where I'm like, I don't know if this is healthy. I don't know if this much guardrails for
on your
both
end.
of us, both of us,
both of you.
Some of the ones that I placed on her as well.
So the trust was just, even though you felt like you wanted to trust them, you were uncomfortable with the boundaries.
Right. And so setting up these guardrails, at first I'm like, sure, if that helps us. But look at the bigger picture. This is us right now. We are.
You felt closed off.
Trapped. Yeah. We can barely see any light. And we can be happy in this little cave, but for how long?
So you felt that it was just this isolated event. And once you put yourselves in real world situations.
Yeah, it wasn't practical.
It wasn't practical.
And so I actually think that breaking up is very, very difficult. And not many people have the guts to
it's so
hold
hard.
the trigger. And to be honest, that last relationship, that breakup was, in all honesty, one of the hardest decisions I've made in my life.
Because you had really pictured this girl to be a part of your future.
I really didn't want to. But then I think, especially with relationships, not to give anyone ideas, but an important question is, how do I feel right now?
Yeah. Today, like you were saying earlier.
How do I feel today? Yeah. Am I going to just, if I just tough it out for 3 years, then everything will be better? I don't know. I don't really agree with that. I'm the one that broke it off.
Right.
And then that phone call was many, many, many hours long.
Wow.
Because even then I was like,
you kept reneging against your gut.
But then I just had to, at the end of the day, listen to my gut. And everything that followed, I'm not trying to seek any sort of sympathy, but when someone pulls a trigger, and especially when they still have feelings, if I'm the one that broke it off, I can't be the one that reaches back out. I can't be wishy-washy.
You felt guilty about that.
I know. There was no chance, and I never did.
Wow.
We exchanged an email or two, just kind of final goodbyes, and then I just kind of completely cut it.
Out of sight, out of mind is sometimes the easiest way because
it's the only way.
It's the only way.
I think. Yeah. That's how I like to approach it. But I agree. And I'm still not 100% over it.
What about the heartbreak was so crippling?
Her. Very her specifically.
Just her presence was no longer there.
Yeah, everything.
So long-term her as well as current her.
Oh, yeah. Her, because the things that I loved about her, I saw a lot of wife qualities, right? Marriage qualities.
So long-term her for that purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just everything. And just, yeah.
So it was maybe mourning the marriage more than anything that wouldn't be the future.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there was definitely a part of that long-term her. There was I just missed her. And
fleeting moments of just current. Yeah.
Right. And,
And what made you stay the course of saying, but this is still the right action? Was it the distance and the insecurities around the distance?
Yeah, everything. It didn't take long for me to know and confirm that it was the right choice. I knew pretty quickly on that it was the right choice, but it didn't necessarily make it any easier. It's one of those things where doing the right thing sometimes felt so wrong and hurt. Why is there so much pain associated with it? And why is doing the right thing and courage, it's so much harder said than done. And actually executing it and sticking through with it. But a big part of the reason was because I was I have a dream to chase. And and it sucks that you couldn't be a part of that, because ever since I was young, one thing I've always wanted, I've always had big dreams, but I've always wanted a high school sweetheart.
Yeah, to grow into all the different versions of yourself
someone
together.
That's been with me before I really took off or anything of that sort.
So that was a big dream. That you had lived with.
Yeah.
And that now was broken too. So you were mourning part of your life.
Yeah.
and that dream that you had for yourself as well as actually her actual presence. What was the biggest turning point for you where you started to feel a little bit better? And what do you think you were learning from that, or how were you growing coming around that first turn?
I think the biggest turn was the mental clarity and the mental bandwidth, the space that you have in your head.
Oh, right.
Because when you're in the thick of it, it's so cluttered. And even when you're doing work, I mean, it's hazy.
It's still there. It's still
blurry.
Right behind there.
Oh, yeah. And so that kind of mental clarity helped a lot to, I guess, just focus and just do my thing. And I mean, I definitely made the right choice. And although
it still currently hurts.
Oh, yeah. You
still made the right choice.
Right. That I am for certain of. And then some really great work opportunities came after the breakup.
Where you felt like it was almost a sign.
I can't really attest to that, to that much detail and certainty. However, really good and important steps in my career resulted after that breakup. And
was it once the clarity had set in, or was it still in the hazy period where you got to cling to those career opportunities that brought you into some clarity?
Right. Both after the clarity, both during the haziness, because I say that because I think a lot of things were just out of my hands and the timing of it all. The breakup happened and all right, me, Joon, moving in forward with my life, some things I think were set for me to happen and it just couldn't happen while I was in that. And so now it could finally, some opportunities could be presented to me or just, And so I think a lot of things were out of my hand, but at the same time, mentally, I could kind of get back on course and on the road and start driving again. Even outside of that relationship, I got an even stronger sense of confirmation that I am on the right path. And this is the path that I need to pursue.
It just it fulfills you. You feel aligned.
Yeah, okay. I was aligned. I felt a lot of confirmation and just knowing for certain that, I made the right choice at that time, even if there were moments of hesitation and just regret. I knew that was the right choice I had to do. So that helped me just kind of move forward.
I feel like in other places in your life, when you are proactive, it bleeds into other areas of your life.
Yeah. Because it's laziness and overstaying in a relationship is like a hot tub. You start to get a little pruny. So
the pruny hot tub breakup feeling is a very accurate feeling.
And then once you start to unprune,
heard it compared like that. It's true.
You're like, I got some moisture back in my skin. Okay.
The lines are fading on my fingertips, guys. I've healed.
So that was one of those moments. And when I started to unprune.
When you started to unprune. I love that.
One of the biggest lessons I learned that helped was kind of nurturing myself, because I did tend to have some savior complex. So
save her.
I could save you. I could save her. I could change her. I could iron out the kinks.
So you've let go of the savior complex.
I've let go.
And you know that you can only give 35% of yourself, and
but I'm just
very upfront about that.
Yeah, and I'm very upfront about that. And if I'm being honest, the single part is hard. And I think a lot of LA struggles with that, with the dating, because a lot of LA culture, dating culture, I've noticed, is everyone will be in a situationship without the actual relationship, because a lot of people are career driven. And so they want to reap all the benefits of being in a kind of a committed relationship without the title.
Well, I also think that's a lack of communication.
Yeah, that's true too.
If you both call it a situationship, then that's essentially a kind of relationship. I would say the situationship is only a situationship because you haven't labeled the relationship. You don't have to be a committed relationship, but you can be a relationship. And so it's the situationship is essentially, and I'm guilty of not wanting to talk about things because you're afraid you're going to ruin them. But I think that's actually the opposite effect. I think lean into what you are and what you need. And it bodes a lot better to not go into situationship territory. Would you do long distance again is the takeaway. I think we know the answer, but
for Angelina Jolie, I would. I'm not going to rule it out. Never say never. but I would really try to steer away from it.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the same boat. It's like a 90-10.
Yeah. That's a good
for
formula.
We appreciate your candor to go through because it's not easy to talk about breakups. Like, what made you want to come on the podcast to talk about breakups? What was this important to you?
I mean, it's just, why not?
Yeah.
Especially if it's already happened, then why shy away from it? Because I think I am a lot of who I am through all my breakups in my life.
It's a tapestry.
Yeah.
I feel like I really commend anyone that comes on this podcast because we're conversation by conversation destigmatizing this idea that because something didn't work out doesn't mean it's not a success.
Mm-hmm.
And that vulnerability is something reserved for the people that only know you best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the more that people are vulnerable with strangers, the better this world will be.
Yeah.
And so, Joon walks in this room with three strangers essentially. And I now feel like I know your ex.
We're all,
she seems lovely.
She's honestly, she's lovely. And I really hope.
You carry so much love with your story.
I really do hope that if this podcast was a year ago, it would be a little too much resentment.
Too raw.
Yeah. It'd
be a very different story.
Yeah. You can
a little more heavy metal.
When you talk to someone, sometimes you can tell like how fresh they are in a breakup.
We're open to all stages.
Sure,
I mean, I think the more someone has that anger and rawness, and you have to like dissipate it in real time, because the reality is there's two sides to every story. And as a Libra, I'm always saying, well, to give credit where it's due, this person really did think this, or if I say this about them, they would not like this, because I'm always trying to compensate for both sides. But even Libras have their subjective side of the story.
I agree.
So I really commend you and thank you for just being a part of the conversation. So our lightning round might involve flags just to, there's a flag involved here. But we're going to do a lightning round. First thing that comes to your mind. And you could be as little or detailed as possible. We will turn into the 3-hour session podcast format.
All right.
Just kidding, guys. Okay. When was your first breakup? How old were you? Where were you? I'm assuming Atlanta.
15.
How long did it last?
A year.
Do you remember your first crush? Was this the 14-year-old or was this before?
My first crush was like in 5th grade. But my first girlfriend was kind of like my first real crush, I guess.
What was her name?
Her name was Esther.
What's your model relationship? It can be well-known, not well-known. Anybody in your life?
Model relationship?
Yeah.
Like
do you have
person?
anybody that you really attain to have the love life that they have, so to speak?
One of the couples is my personal friend and his girlfriend.
And what do you love about their relationship? What's your favorite thing? I'm sure there's a million things, but your favorite?
The level of trust and stability where they have just complete and full trust. It took 9 years.
And what are their names?
Kevin and Rachel. Shout out to Kevin and Rachel.
They say, especially for chaotic businesses, the more chaotic the business, the more stable the home life is usually what they say. Makes sense.
They're the healthiest couple I've ever seen in my life. Genuinely.
Kevin and Rachel.
Yeah.
Okay. Your breakup go-to movie.
My breakup movie. This was very specific with my last one. I was on the plane. I watched Lost in Translation.
Wow, that's a good one.
Oh my gosh, it wrecked me.
Breakup song.
I've been listening to some Miley, Jaded.
Breakup food.
Burgers.
Spicy, not spicy?
Yeah, I love spicy.
First thing you do after a breakup?
After a breakup, tears and tequila.
Tears and tequila. What's your number one red flag in a relationship or potential relationship?
I like it when I bring someone to a function, like a casual date, when she can carry herself.
So it's a green flag.
So yeah, when she can't do that, I guess.
When she can't do that, when she can do that.
When she cannot do that, that's a red flag, I suppose.
Yep. And then what's your number one green flag in a relationship?
Smart, pretty funny.
We have this thing called a beige flag, which is I think it's called a fun quirk that you love.
I love quirks though.
Okay, so is there any particular quirks you like, or any of your previous girlfriend's quirks? Those count too. They're still in you.
I love voices. I like it when a genuine laugh slips and you're like, what was that? What was that little snort there?
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Like a really awkward laugh.
Just like, and she's like embarrassed, but it's cute.
So what do you think your beige flag is to other people? Like what is one quirk about yourself that you love or that you think others would love about you?
I can just say some things. Like sometimes my humor, I just say things.
To sign us off, Joon Lee, you have got a pretty fun Netflix show coming out next year called The Brother's Son. So I was want to get into that with you too.
Yes, it's called The Brother's Son, starring myself and the almighty Michelle Yeoh.
Wow.
And this was my first show ever.
I've never
done extra work. I've never played a waiter. I've never done a 5 and under.
So just series reg, just cut right to it.
My first thing is a series reg.
I only am in a double banger. I'm only in a very fancy trailer. That's all or nothing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's all I want. But it's edgy. It's fun. It's dark. It's gritty. So be on the lookout.
Again, thank you for coming and being a part of the conversation. What are your words of wisdom to our listeners?
My number one principle in life is a life without laughter is not a life worth living.
I couldn't agree more. So I just appreciate you putting your words of wisdom in our basket.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Oh, did you have fun?
I had a blast.
A fun time on a breakup. You had a blast on a breakup podcast. Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you so much, Joon Lee, for joining the conversation. And thank you guys for listening to UnCoupling. Don't forget to subscribe to UnCoupling wherever you get your podcast. UnCoupling Podcast is produced by Stampede Ventures, Jason R. Ellis, and Holland Roden.